series of fund webinars that we're doing for the month of February to coincide with the launch of the Innovation Fund 2021. My name is Brita O'Brien and I lead the team, the innovation team in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. Before we get cracking with our wonderful guests today, I just want my team to introduce themselves. So first of all, over to Anne. You're on mute, Anne.
Sorry, but mistake as usual. My name is Anne Broders. I'm the Innovation Fund Manager. I'm on secondment from Enterprise Ireland at the moment. Thanks.
Thanks. And Anne is our accountant in residence, and Anne will be the one hassling you throughout the year, looking for all your documentation and all of that good stuff. But she'll be also the one giving you all the money. So Anne will be your friend if you're successful in this fund. So Vinny, do you want to go next?
Yeah, good morning. My name is Vinny Lanigan. I'm seconded from the Defence Forces and I'm looking after the Innovation Network and the Innovation Conference.
Thanks, Vinny. And Catherine?
Hi, I'm Catherine Matters. I'm on secondment from Wexford County Council. I work on the Innovation Fund, Communications and the Innovation Scorecard.
Thanks, Catherine. And last but not least, Dean?
Yeah, hi, my name is Dean Reid. I work on the innovation team. I'm seconded from the Department of Justice. I work on the Innovation Fund. I help Anne also with all the finances for the fund. And I also manage the Innovation and Collaboration Forum, which is basically a safe place for public servants to share ideas, join groups, and just join in conversation with colleagues across the public sector. So if anyone's interested in joining, just email the inbox or in the chat box here, we can get you set up. That's me.
Thanks, Dean. And yeah, we're putting a big push on the innovation and collaboration space this year, which we set up in response to COVID last year because we can't meet as a group. I should have said I'm seconded from the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, and we're a seconded team, for those who don't know, who joined mid-year in 2019. Our secondment, unfortunately, is coming to a close in the next few months, and a new team will join the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform to advance the initiatives that we've developed and I guess, you know, continue on in the journey. So before we get started with our guests today, I'm just going to share my presentation and talk through some of the features of this year's fund. So if you just bear with me. I should be able to multitask, but I'm not able to.
We can do that.
Okay.
The silence is deafening, Brita.
I know that was my slowest yet. Apologies. But maybe it was building anticipation for a really interesting presentation, she hopes. So, okay, so the call is now open. As you know, it's been open for 2 weeks. First and foremost, you must take note of the deadline. You have until next Wednesday, the 24th of February at 12 noon. There's plenty of time. I should say, and I forgot to say the last webinar, but we have actually shortened the application form. So the same questions are there, but you're not, you know, the word count is much less. So I think sometimes people feel if there's particular word count, they must reach that, and so we have actually reduced that. So it is a much shorter form than previous years, particularly since the first year. So you mightn't think, oh, you haven't a lot of time, but you do actually. It's a very relatively easy and accessible form. With the form, like last year, must be submitted online. Catherine has created an online submission facility, an online form facility, so that you must submit the form via that online form on our website. You'll find it through the guidelines that are up on our website. And if you've any difficulties with that, please do get in touch. But in the first instance, maybe contact your ICT units in case there's any access problems, and then contact us at innovation@per.per.gov.ie if you're still having any difficulties. And maybe try and look at that before maybe 12 o'clock on Wednesday, because there could be others in the same boat, and a lot of that, there's only so much of us on the team to be able to help you with that process. So maybe try and submit if you can a little bit before. But we still get asked, what is innovation? There's still a misconception that innovation must be something, a new invention, or that it's technology focused. And while those things can be true, we look at it as the following, and this is the definition that we use. It's used in our new Making Innovation Real, a new public service innovation strategy that our colleague Philip McGrath launched last November. So that's, if you want to check that out, it's on ops2020.gov.ie. Innovation is a new and viable offering that adds value. So that's what we use as our definition. So it can be new to your organization. It doesn't need to be new to the world. And viable offering. So that means, it needs to be something, it might cost a lot and not benefit many. So you need to look at what's the actual added value here, and it must have that value piece at the end. So it might be nice to have an idea, but if it doesn't create value for, say, the user or the business that you provide grants to, or the public service worker, we wouldn't see that as innovation. So what is the fund? For those who don't know or haven't been involved or haven't been aware of the Innovation Fund to date, the fund, myself and the team you see here, we were brought together to look at various different initiatives to deepen innovation culture in the public sector. One such being the network, which Vinny mentioned, which has over 850 members to date, and that's since its establishment in September 2019. Another is the Innovation Week. So the first Public Service Innovation Week we developed in 2019, which was very physical based in terms of a conference event in Dublin Castle and so on, and workshops throughout the country. And then last year we obviously pivoted and put everything online, and with great engagement with nearly 5,000 people with the various different activities that we held. Obviously, in addition, organizations themselves ran events to put a focus on innovation for that week. So we're very proud of those initiatives, and the fund is another major one. So these are all things that we developed to try and enable innovation in your organization. So there's many enablers, and funding can be difficult to secure for projects that haven't been tried and tested before and where there's no evidence base. So that's when we established the fund in 2019, and it has evolved over the 2 years since its inception. We, as I said, joined mid-year, but since that we've supported 52 projects across all sectors of the public service, with over 1.5 million in funding. And to date, what we've received in terms of the collective amount of applications has been over 500. So there are really good ideas out there, and if we could fund them all, we would. We have a limited budget ourselves, so it is a very highly competitive fund. So 2019, just to break down the stats, we funded 18 projects to the tune of just over $500,000. That was 140 projects, and all sectors were funded. And as I said, we sort of launched that fund as soon as we joined. So there wasn't a whole lot of communications at that point. And since then, Catherine and the team have done a lot in terms of the communications. And you'll see it jumped up to 364 applications requesting 15.4 million in 2020. And an important stat there is, unfortunately, we were only able to fund 9% of the applications awarded. So just to note that, just in case, it still is a useful process, but it's highly competitive. Last year we brought about 70 projects into the final stage, and about 1 and 2 of those were funded. So it is highly competitive, but we definitely are aware of people using this process to connect with other organizations that they had hoped to collaborate, and maybe putting in business cases to their organizations and successfully securing funding on the basis of the work they had done for this application. So don't get disheartened. All is not lost if you aren't successful, but we really would encourage you to get your project down on paper and send it in. Again, I've said this at each webinar, but a lot of people, particularly the first year, thought they weren't even sure was their project good enough. They weren't even going to submit it, and they were successful. So you could be pleasantly surprised. So I think Don't fret, get the project in. There's going to be 2 layers of evaluation. We'll worry about the evaluation of the project. You just get your project in, and yeah, and we're really looking forward to reading the projects this year. It's really the best part of this job. So if you're new and you don't know where to start, the best thing to do is to download our fund guidelines. There you'll find all of the information in great detail about the process, about the criteria, which I'm going to get to next, and yeah, and the eligibility. So obviously the fund is open to public service organisations only. And on page 5, it looks at that eligibility piece. So if you're Section 39 organisation, if you're a charity, or if you're a commercial state entity, this fund you're not eligible for this fund. But you know, another way to look at it is if your organisation is 50% or more than 50% funded by the Exchequer, or if your organisation, the staff of your organisation, are eligible to pay into the single pensions public service pension scheme. That's another sign that you're eligible. But after that, and after looking at page 5, and you still have difficulties with understanding and discerning whether you're eligible or not, get in touch. Again, innovation@per.gov.ie, and we'll give you a hand there to figure that out. Sometimes it's not as obvious. So important features for this call this year. We've moved the funding award slightly. It's a shift, a small shift, but a shift nonetheless. We've moved from previously we funded projects starting at €10,000. We've moved that up now slightly to 25,000 to a maximum ceiling of 60,000. This is because we're very aware of, you know, and hopefully it's because of some of the work that we've been doing in the team, but there's definitely momentum around the agenda, and lots of organisations are actually establishing their own innovation funds and are supporting that smaller type pilot, whereas we're sort of moving, slowly shifting towards supporting that larger scale pilot, the pilot that has the ability to scale across public service and transfer across sectors. So it's a small shift, but it's definitely something to note. And then in terms of the ceiling of 60, we'd never actually funded quite up to the 100,000 before, and we're very aware of, you know, everyone has to get on with their day job on top of doing this project, and so we want to be sort of more realistic. And a really important part that we've learned over the 2 years is that, and we really would encourage you to think about how ready you are for what phase of your project. So have a look, if it's really just the start, do you maybe just need to secure funding for a proof of concept phase? Are you ready to implement the innovation? Are you ready to scale the innovation? So look at the phase of project and think about, do I need to apply for the full thing? Am I capable of getting the full project done by the end of the year? Because we run an annual budgetary cycle. And it's important that all of the money is drawn down and spent before the end of the year. And by spent, we mean if you say, for example, you've procured contractors or equipment or whatever, you need to get those invoices and you need to pay those invoices. And Anne will be looking for those transaction reports in November, along with your final report. But another important feature, just to say, for those who have applied before and are familiar and who've been successful, know that in the past we funded upfront a portion of the award. We're not going to be doing that going forward. There'll be no pre-funding of grants for this year. So you will have to use your organisational funding to get your project started, and then there'll be an opportunity, the first opportunity on the 14th of July, which is the deadline for your first report, your first reporting deadline. The interim report is due that date, and you'll be able to claim the expenses that have accumulated to that point. Your second and final deadline is the 15th of November, where you'll be able to claim the remaining portion of the award that's left to claim. So that's really important, and I've added in the deeper Circular 13/2014, the management and accountability for grants. So these are the rules that apply to all grant funding, and many of you will be familiar with that circular. If you're successful, it'll become your Bible. You really will have to know this and what's expected of you. For instance, when Anne will be looking at your reports, if you've done some procurement over threshold, you need to outline, say the e-tenders notice and the number associated with that. You need to tell us all of that information. So have a look at that. It's very useful to know what are the responsibilities that you have. So the criteria, and I won't labor this too much because it is all in the funding guidelines, but you'll see the first two are the most, you can gain the most marks from, and then the next four are 10 marks, okay? And so ultimately, the types of projects we want to support, they have to be innovative. So that's why we've novelty down as 30 marks. So it has to be new. It has to be something that isn't currently happening in your organization. You know, we won't be supporting business as usual. We don't want to see business as usual projects. I don't want to see projects that are displacement of current, you know, existing funding streams. So we're not trying to pay for the thing that already happens. It has to be about an introduction of a new way of doing things. And so you'll see that outlined in much more detail in the guidelines. And then in terms of value, as I mentioned earlier, you know, it isn't innovation if you aren't creating that value piece at the end. So what will be the impact of your innovation on the user, on the public, on the patient, on the business, or on the staff member and the organization? So are you creating loads of efficiencies, cost savings, or a better way of delivering your service, a more enjoyable experience or better experience for the public? So then the next criteria is transferability, scalability, and learning. So, you know, we really would encourage, you know, projects that have that ability to scale up. So if it's perhaps certain technology that's applied, it can be looked at, you know, so we all have HR units and so on. So if there's something, a process that's been used, there's so much commonality. While, you know, we're not very homogenous as a public service, maybe certain sectors might be, but there's certainly lots of common areas where we can share the learning, and so that's 10 marks for that. Again, the collaboration piece, number 4 there is 10 marks. You know, are you looking to partner with another organization in your sector or outside your sector or beyond? And again, that's 10 marks. The evidence base for the application is 10 marks. So tell us about the problem that exists. So the evidence can be about the existence of that problem, and maybe the anticipation of what, you know, maybe if the solution has been used in another jurisdiction, for example, you can tell us about that and the evidence that's been found in terms of applying that project elsewhere. And then the procurement plan and contribution of the recipient organization, finally, that's 10 marks. That's kind of split into two. We want to see, you know, what you're going to spend the money on. So this tells us how developed in your thinking you are about the project, and it helps us know if you're likely to get the project over the line in time, because we've limited resources and we want to support projects that are ready. We don't want to have leftover money at the end of the year, and that, you know, Anne will be very disappointed if she has money that's left over. We don't want to give it back to the Exchequer. We want to give it to you and your projects. So tell us and break it down. You know, the form that's been developed looks at is it capital? Are you buying equipment? Is it for contractors? Is it, so, you know, we don't fund, and it's important to note, salary costs, no staff costs. We don't want to see that that'll be ineligible straight away, but you are allowed, you know, fund contractors. So if you're getting a contractor to do a piece of work. So that's important, but look at that piece, tell us. I don't want to see just a ballpark 60,000 without giving us a detailed breakdown. I know it's difficult to estimate, but try and give an estimate of how. We won't hold you to that specifically. We want to see that you have a plan in place and you kind of understand what your project will require. Of course, you know, there can be movement with that once you start the project, but that's really important for us to understand where you're at. And in terms of the recipient organisation, the contribution, it can be match funding, and we encourage that for sure. But some organisations mightn't have that ability to provide match funding, and that's absolutely fine. What we want to see again is that commitment. So are you proposing that a staff member half their time or quarter their time or quarter the time of 2 staff members to work on this project? We want to see that commitment in terms of getting that project over the line. So the next slide again just talks, I'll make these slides available online, and again most of the session is recorded and that will be available, but we want to help you do what you do better. Is there a better way to do what you do? Have you had, like me, you know, years working in civil service, always thought of different things that been niggling at you and thought, oh gosh, this is so inefficient, or oh gosh, I've seen how, you know, the health service in the UK are using this, or I've seen how the Danish system are introducing this technology. You know, have you got these ideas? you know, this is the fund for you. So have a look at the guidelines, and that's the best place to start. And if you even want to chat to us about ideas, you've plenty of time. I know it's only next week, but you do have time. So I won't go into all of, I've covered most of this before, so I won't go in. These slides will be available. These are all just effectively just taken straight from the guidelines. Novelty again, and it gives you detailed breakdown about what we mean by that. So it's very helpful, or we think it is anyway. So again, this is an important deadline. You know, all the funds must be drawn down. So you need to think your project in terms of the 15th of November is the last date, and maybe build in some contingency as well. Another thing I'd mention is that if there's a co-funding component, so that isn't with your organization with match funding, if there's another element of co-funding that you expect, maybe from Europe or whatever, you need to include that, but you also need to clearly delineate between what that funding will be for and what this fund would fund. So is what maybe we fund a particular phase of your project, or maybe a piece of equipment or whatever, but you need to have that clear delineation. It's very important under the grant circular to identify if there's other funding streams. There can't be we don't want to be displacing other funding that's happening already. So that's me, quick whistle-stop tour of the fund for this year. A useful resource is Catherine has put up on the website all the projects that we have funded for 2019 and 2021, 2020 even. So have a look at that, and that's on that website there, ops2020.gov.ie/funding, and you'll get all of the information there. But I'll stop presenting now. Hopefully it won't take as long as starting presenting. Okay, we're back in the room. And we're delighted today to finish our fund themed webinars with some really fantastic stories of innovation. And I think these, you know, we've a lot of friends here today who have covered a number of different, if you're ever in doubt that there's such diversity of careers available in the public service, this is the webinar for you. But without further ado, I want to introduce our first guest, so Ross Cullen, a great friend in the HSE Digital Academy. Ross has worked across a number of e-health communications and program management roles over his 20-year career at the HSE. Ross joined the HSE Digital Transformation team in late 2019 as Digital Innovation Manager and manages HSE Digital Labs, an e-health innovation portfolio, and supports their Masters in Digital Health Transformation in partnership with the network of Irish universities. So Ross, you're very welcome.
What a lovely introduction. Thanks, Breda. Now, can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, without further ado, thank you for that lovely introduction, Breda, and a big thank you to all the OPS 2020 team who have been so helpful during this process, even before and throughout the funding. It's also an honour as well to be presenting alongside our Defence Forces colleagues today, so big thanks to them. We've had a good chat in the green room, as they say on the Late Late Show earlier, so it was lovely to catch up with them and get more insights into the work they do. So as you can see on the camera here, I don't really look like that picture anymore. This is my post-COVID face, I could say, and like many of us is in well overdue a haircut at this stage anyways, but look, we'll struggle on for another while. There's light at the end of the tunnel. So before we begin anyways, I was trying to think of some way to describe OPS 2020 and how they've helped accelerate innovation for us. And I saw this graphic as I was thinking of something that would represent that. Now, when I see the Innovation Fund poster, I realized that it was psychologically in my mind anyways, because it's a similar analogy, but you can see that I've just put two arrows. That the Public Service Innovation Fund is almost like the soil for us to kind of help those ideas, those seeds that we have to kind of grow and thrive and prosper. So I hope this kind of represents the process. And you can see on the left hand side, there's a team behind the scenes with OPS 2020, and just to call out some of Anne and Breda and Catherine and Dean, Hilary and John and Laura and Vinny and Philip and the wider OPS 2020 team. So although we got the funding in digital transformation, a big thanks to our colleagues in Tallaght University Hospital, who the implementation is actually happening. David Wall, who's the CIO there, Valerie Wallace on his team, and the wider TUH team, and Catherine. So just a bit about what HSE Digital Transformation do itself. So we're based as part of the e-health function of the health service, It's known as the Office of the CIO, and as Breda said there, that I joined the team just around the same time it was being established in Q3 2019. And so kind of one of our main mechanisms in I suppose approving digital transformation solutions at various stages is a digital solutions review board that we have. And so they look at each of the various innovations that we propose, and we bring them through various stages, including a pilot or a proof of concept first. And then we might go further after an evaluation of X amount of period to see if we can roll that wider out. That would be known as a demonstrator. And then fundamentally, we would work on the business case to get broad adoption, so to get that solution rolled out across the health service. So this is just a quick look at the team here. So these are all the lovely people that I get to work with every day. So Martin Curley, who many of you may be familiar with, leads digital transformation, and my colleagues Lorraine and Des as well. So big hello to them if they're listening in. Hi. So we have big ambitions. COVID has been very good to us in helping I suppose accelerate our digital transformation and ambitions. We want to be a European leader by 2026. So initially we would have started out here, and we think we're about here now. We still have a long way to go per se, but we're very much on track anyways. So we talk about 5 pillars in digital transformation. These are them here, and I'll just quickly skim through them because I know we're tight for time. Our digital academy, which is around educating our workforce. We have a master's in digital health transformation. We have over 50 students who have attended to it, and we're really proud of this because in the time that we were able to scale this up, against all the skeptics who said that you couldn't turn around a master's in that time frame, and we're really proud that we have. But we have, that's down to the dedication and the good team that we have, in both in the front and behind the scenes in helping deliver that. It's accredited by the University of Limerick, but it's an all-Ireland Masters in that every university in Ireland delivers a module on it. So it's really proud to be one of the few, if only, all-Ireland Masters. We then have our open innovation, which is almost a way about, our philosophy and how we do business. We're very much around open innovation, so very much around collaboration, sharing, and things like that. And this is all in line with our stay left, shift left strategy, which is around I suppose moving patients more from the costly acute setting and seeing how we can be more proactive in treating people in the community and even into their own homes. So a lot of that would be around proactive remote monitoring and some of those solutions that we've rolled out throughout COVID. Our digital labs, which is basically our innovation portfolio, where we manage a lot of the solutions that we have, and this a lot of the time is in partnership with government, academia, industry, and citizens or patients. Our Digital Academy Forum, we have one coming up on March 28th, I believe. But if you watch our HSE Digital Transformation Twitter page, which I'll put up at the end, we have one coming up at the end of March. So I'd encourage you to tune in for that. It's our quarterly webinar where it's almost like TED Talks, where we share our ideas and innovations and solutions around e-health. And lastly, then our digitization and disruptive technology. So this is looking to the future. So this is looking to, I suppose the emerging research in the space of e-health and digital. So this would be around genomics, artificial intelligence, 5G, drone delivery, etc. And you can see then this is all underpinned by a digital first culture that we're supporting. So let's focus now on my application that was successful last year. It was around vital signs automation, as we've tagged it, but some people would know it as digital news, or more recently it's actually been changed to iNews. So a quick summary of it, and then I'll go into each of them in a bit more detail. So the project is piloting a digital national early warning score system, or the Irish National Early Warning Score System as it's known now, within an acute hospital setting with an evaluation and collaboration with our university partners. So basically what we have there is we have some students from the Masters in Digital Health Transformation who are supporting the evaluation of the solution as well. A national digital early warning score system can improve patient safety significantly while maximising the utilisation of existing bed capacity. Having robust iNews supports the reduction of deterioration of a patient and fundamentally saving lives and improving patient outcomes. And I'll go into more detail of what that is. So we were awarded €50,000 last year to digital transformation, and Tala University were selected as the pilot site, and additional funding then has since been provided for the pilot with TUH, I believe, through their foundation. So the procurement commenced in June 2020, and I can't highlight this enough that you need to be quick out of the marks per se, particularly if you're around the procurement threshold of over 25k. You need to be ready to go to procurement very quickly. Because it does take a while to see out that process. So if you're sending an application and you're trying to be proactive on this, I would be and you think it's going to be more if you're going to select a particular vendor or maybe a contractor who's not on a framework. Go if your local procurement person is your new best friend. Find them out and get that ball rolling. I know in the HSE anyways there's a process that we have to go through in raising a PSR, so the procurement service request, something like that, and at least then that kind of gets the ball rolling to be on their radar and let them know that you're coming. So the implementation commenced in mid-November, and the implementation is currently paused regrettably with COVID-19, but we're really looking forward to getting the wheels in motion again anyways to see out the evaluation. So what is iNews? I've touched on it very quickly, and I'm going to give you the official definition here in italics from the national guidelines, which the link I've included below. So it's the Irish National Early Warning Score, and this facilitates the early detection of deterioration of a patient by categorising a patient's severity of illness and prompting nursing staff to request a medical review at specific trigger points. And this utilises a structured communication tool, which is on the right, while following a definitive escalation plan. And adopting iNews is beneficial for standardising the assessment of acute illness severity, enabling a more timely response using a common language across acute hospitals nationally. So the great thing about this is that, with an organisation as large as the Health Service, it's very hard to kind of get a standardised set of protocols or tools across such a large organization. So this is standardized across all hospitals across the country, and there are variations of it for different disciplines in pediatrics and so on. And then underneath that chart on the right hand side, then I've included the warning score then. So you can see the 0 in the middle. If you can see my mouse cursor, the 0 on the little chart below is kind of where you want to be per se. So this would be, we'll just look at temperature, for example. So you want to be within the 36 to 38 degree range. So if you fall above or below that, then you're obviously there's something wrong, and the early warning score then is used to kind of calculate you with an overall score. This is manual at the moment, so it's written in, and then there's a calculation that has to be done. So we could see very quickly that there was a definitive need to introduce a digital response to this, and obviously the aspiration would be that the instruments, the observation medical devices that take all these readings would automatically put those in, so there's less errors, errors in calculation, maybe handwriting, maybe not so legible, etc., etc. So some of the observations that are recorded I put down at the bottom. So that would be your respiratory rate, so your breathing, your oxygen saturation, your heart rate, your blood pressure, and your temperature. So all those contribute in making up the early warning score. So the problem, I suppose, the iNews scoring is currently manually calculated on paper using the iNews standard in public hospitals in Ireland. And so there's various research that has been done out here already supporting a digital system. So there was a study done in the Galway Clinic that showed that there's a 50.44 error rate in calculating the iNews manually on paper. And some things, that I'll get into in more detail, such as respiration. So respiration is like the poor relation of OBS, because it's recorded manually and generally from sight as opposed to using an instrument. So one questions, the accuracy there as well. But if we look at another study then that had been done by the Health Innovation Hub in collaboration with HSE South and University College Cork, they were reporting 59% errors relating to outcomes, and this could significantly impact on patients. And you can see that if timing delays are removed from the assessment, and paper news recordings demonstrate a type 2 error rate 39, where a digital system shows an error rate of 0%. And the introduction of a vital signs automation system using, the iNews protocol allows early indication of patient health deterioration and alerts nursing staff and doctor to respond quicker. And as a result, that results in improved patient outcomes and increase in bed capacity, over a long period of time, due to improved efficiencies and reduction in transfer to high dependency or intensive care units. This is just another chart as well that we've got from the Golden Jubilee in Scotland, and you can see there that over time they mapped the error rates on samples of doing the early warning score manually, and with the introduction then of a digital system, in this case the Qs 300, which is the same one that they're using in Tala, which is an Irish company called Synchrify, that they've reduced that now down to 0, which is great. So let's kind of give you a quick look at the solution anyways. So the procurement, so following the successful procurement, the Qs 300 system from Synchrify was chosen, and that is a CE marked Class 2B software as a medical device. So you can see on the right hand side, you've got your traditional observation medical devices, on this little dolly trolley, if you want, that is wheeled around to each of the patients per se, to record their observations. And the addition then is just a tablet at the top of it, where all the devices either connect through Bluetooth or USB to record all those manually. This is what the user interface of the system looks like, and you can see here in each of these boxes here. So this is the recordings of each of the scores, and the patient has, we say in the second one here that I'm flashing, as a score of 3 and a score of 3 here, and then a score of 6 then. And you can see underneath each of those then is the various recordings. Now these are just sample stuff, they're not representative of a real patient. 37 degrees temperature is constant, heart rate 66, SpO2 99 and 91. So you can see it actually highlights then in red, amber, green then if one of those is above or below the threshold. So a really useful system, and the feedback from other places such as the Galway Clinic and the Bonds that have it have been really positive, and we look forward to just to progressing further with this. The great thing is that people who might be used to looking at the traditional early warning score sheet, so you can go into a kind of a print preview and it'll automatically plot that on the traditional paper like we have here. So that's really useful, so there isn't a huge kind of learning curve in trying to, figure out the new layout of the score. So some of the benefits then you can see here that I've kind of quickly talked about, the improvement in quality of recording of the measurements, the calculation of the INUs, reduction in time to record the measurements, because you're there at the bedside, there's the pressure of a busy environment around you, and trying to calculate that while trying to think of everything can be very challenging. So improvement in escalation and management of deteriorating patients, so you can make better decisions quicker, with better information and more accurate information. Improvement in access to vital signs data through the electronic system, so you can historically see it. And you can see this picture on the right hand side. So this is a central monitoring station, so you can see all the patients that have been given their OBS. So all that information is transmitted down the hospital's IT network locally. So at the central station, they can potentially see, once they've done their ward round per se, they can see an overview of all the recordings of the vital signs, and this can be used as a prioritization tool. The most deteriorated, we need to follow up on more OBS on that patient more quicker. So it almost kind of helps you decide, which patients should be seen first, which are the most sickest patients. So improvement obviously in patient care, as you've well seen now at the stage, reduction in charting errors, and improvement in the management process overall. So the next steps and kind of looking into the future. So the recommencement obviously of the project in Tala following a reduction in COVID-19 cases, and further evaluation of the solution in conjunction with our student team currently undertaking the Masters in Digital Health Transformation. But then our vision then really is to have a national deployment of systems, of this system across, our health service, to support INUs. And I think, I'm hoping that the way I've explained it, that you can see the huge benefits of, rolling a system out like this across the health service. And in supporting, I suppose, our vision, of a digital first health service. The independent evidence from the National Jubilee Hospital in the NHS in Dublin has shown that the average patient length of stay has been reduced post-implementation. So it also helps, reduce, the length of patient stay, because, a lot of patients obviously do not want to be in hospital in the first case. So, the efficiencies that this brings helps, and reduce that. And it's something that we want to further evaluate in addition, which to, I suppose, investigate the effectiveness of supporting management of sepsis 6. So a lot of people hear about sepsis anyways. So, there's early indications that this a system like this may help in identifying, you know, I suppose the management of the sepsis 6 protocol and helping with the, you know, I suppose the indication of sepsis more quicker. And I believe in the Golden Jubilee they're already using a variation of that. Further then integration of other vital medical devices. So I will say that some of the OBS at the moment in the pilot are having to be done manually. And that is because, you know, some of the equipment mightn't be, you know, some of the observation equipment mightn't have the integration ability yet, or they might be, you know, using, you know, incompatible devices and things like that. But one of the things I touched on earlier on was your respiration rate. And what's really exciting, we've already started integration of Respiration, and this is a wireless respiratory monitoring system that we've recently deployed across many hospitals. This is a work in progress, so you probably haven't seen this. This could be a first here for OPS 2020. So this is a device, you know, specifically in response to COVID-19. With our various stakeholders, including the Chief Clinical Information Officer, Chief Nursing Information Officer, and PMD, an Irish company, have provided the solution. So basically, it's a patch that you stick on your waist per se, and every 25 seconds then it wirelessly sends your respiration rate through Bluetooth. So now we don't actually have to manually put that in on the screen manually anymore. The respiration rate will be wirelessly transmitted. And as I said a while ago about respiratory being the poor relation of OBS, you know, we're probably one of the first, you know, first health services in the country that have invested in a system like this, and really, you know, it's really been shown, you know what I mean, that respiration rate is so important observation, particularly with COVID-19, and you know, early indications and some research that they're doing in Beaumont and Cork would indicate that, you know, they can respond 12 hours quicker to a patient that's, you know, deteriorating with COVID-19, who potentially would be escalated to ICU. So this gives, you know, 12 hours more to you know, the clinical team to intervene and, you know, see what they can do, whether it's, you know, giving more of the drugs they know that have been effective so far, or giving more oxygen to the patient. So really exciting to see anyway. So so watch this space, I would say. So that is pretty much it for me, you know. I mean, there's been a lot of people, as I said, behind the scenes, the OPS 2020 team, which I've thanked, and the team in Tala as well. But special mentions as well to Loretto and Richard, Ronnie in National Clinical Engineering and his team, Ger and Louise, and of course then my colleagues in the office, the CIO, that have been so supportive in the background as well, and not to forget the Health Innovation Hub as well, and of course my colleagues Martin, Lorraine and Des. So that's it from me. I'm not sure if we're going to do Q&A now, but happy to take some of the Q&As in the comments section if that is the case. We, as I said, we have a Digital Academy forum every quarter per se, and a lot of those are available for playback or some of the best segments. So what I might do is I might copy and paste this into the comments box if you want to learn more about digital transformation. And a lot of these talks are some of my favorite as well. So hopefully you get a chance to maybe click on one or two of the links anyways and watch back those. So that's it from me.
Thanks so much, Ross. You managed to squeeze a lot in there for your time slot. And breathe. No, that's great. And just for the audience, I forgot to mention, but we'll take questions at the end of all of the presentations. So if you want to pop them into either the chat function or the Q&A function, Vinny will manage those and we'll put those to our panelists today. So fantastic. This is one of a number of innovations that Ross and the team, shout out to Professor Martin Curley and Lorraine and Des, fantastic team, fantastic friends of our team, have come up with. And so I just wanted to maybe ask you, because I think maybe those out there that are tuning in are, you know, and I've never met such a team for the rate and number of innovations and ideas. So where do you look for your ideas, Ross? Like I saw there that obviously you used, it was a great example in Scotland, and we use that saying steal with pride, you looking at other jurisdictions. But is that how you go about getting your inspiration, or do you have any other hints and tips for people tuned in today about how they can maybe look within their own sectors or abroad or whatever for inspiration?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, it comes, you know, it's multiple spokes of the wheel per se. I think that, you know, a lot of the team, you know, I mean, are, you know, very well connected within the organization and understand a lot of the challenges. So a lot of the time it's through our connections, I suppose, in the organization who come for help. Some of our own personal, encounters, in the past. The Health Innovation Hub, who do an awful lot of work, which are funded by Enterprise Ireland, and have, HSE employees as well, and academic support from the universities as well. That partnership has been very effective as well. We put out a call during COVID on our digital transformation website. So we basically requested both from industry and from staff to, send us your innovation ideas, send us your ideas, particularly around COVID-19, that's, going to, make a big difference in your area. And a lot of the time, it can be a very simple idea. And, as our CEO Paul Reid recently said, we're not expecting perfection either. We have to be agile, and public service gets a bad name for not being more agile. But I think COVID-19 has really helped accelerate that, and I suppose the value that has been seen in having dedicated resources within each of your divisions, or each of your public sector areas, in an innovation team who can really drive this home per se. And we're lucky enough as well that we're in the very much the digital space, and based in the home of the office, the CIO as well. So we have a lot of our colleagues as well coming to us. So so it comes both way. Industry, academia coming to us with their ideas, the solution. Our calls similar to the call that you have here, the Health Innovation Hub, who have their Spark Ignite call, which is coming up soon. So yeah, so I hope that kind of answers the question.
It does, Ross. And just I ask because every time we talk to Ross and Lorraine and Martin, there's like a whole host of other innovations they're working on. So they're very much understand how to kind of generate those ideas. But really important point you mentioned was about the problems and the challenges. So you're looking to solve the problems. So that's a good place to start. Where are there, pain points in a process? Where is, are there complaints coming in about a particular service that you operate? So that's a good place to start. And I think what was interesting about Ross, your innovation and many others, is that you all applied before COVID hit and did a fantastic job. Even though all of you were affected, and some maybe more so than most, you still got through your projects and delivered and finished in time. But those innovations have become perhaps even more valuable subsequent to the pandemic. So there's this, your innovation, Ross, is really interesting in terms of how it's of course, it's the efficiency piece and whatever, but there's a safety component as well now for healthcare staff. Correct? Is that
very much so? I mean, it's very important that nursing and doctor teams still have that engagement with a patient. Like let's take the example of a patient that has COVID. It's very important that they still have that that human interaction as well. But having a system that potentially can wirelessly monitor all their OBS and reporting into a central point, facilitates not having to gown up with as much PPE per se, and more time in that kind of interaction with the patient, as opposed to pressing a load of buttons on a noisy machine beside their bed. Has been very beneficial. So something like this, really helps. And the Respiration solution, which I've mentioned, which is integrating with the vital signs automation system, can only improve it even further. So it's great to see that it's got even better.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And what was really interesting is Ross is, just for those tuning in, a great example of how to use evidence. So the evidence is there from another jurisdiction looking at a similar type thing. And it's what's great about that is you can see where they've struggled and how to even make it better, maybe when you're applying it in the Irish context. Great. Okay, I'll leave that there, Ross. Thanks so much, and you'll hang around. So, and if anyone has questions for Ross, you can put them in the chat function or the Q&A function. Thanks so much, Ross.
Great, thank you.
So up next, and I think the slide gives you a hint about who it is, but we're absolutely delighted to welcome Mairead Phelan. Mairead is the head of the National Building Control Office, a chartered engineer and fellow of Engineers Ireland. She was a programme manager with the Local Government Management Agency on national projects even. Prior to this, she was senior engineer with Fingal County Council's Built Environment, Transportation and Bridges Division. She has spent 10 years with the municipal and town engineer with Carlow County Council, while also performing the role of Conservation Officer. You're very welcome, Mairead. So please tell us about your wonderful project. Thanks. I think you may be on mute, Mairead.
Might just stop so you can unmute first, maybe, Mairead, and then share your screen.
Okay, I'm mute now, and then I'll share again.
Great, we can hear you now.
Okay, I'll share this again. How are you fixed there?
Yep.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Thank you very much, Anne, Breda, Vinny, and Catherine for inviting us to speak today, and we were delighted to receive the deeper innovation funding for 2020, which we used on our national data portal for building control activity across the country. So that's the link to the data portal. Just a little bit about what we do in the National Building Control Office. The National Building Control Office was set up in 2018 to provide for promote compliance with the building regulations. In particular, after the tiger economy, there was a lot of defective buildings. So we were set up as a shared service. The shared service is managed by Dublin City Council. It's paid for by the 31 building control authorities. And we're a team of 6 people. We operate completely remotely. We have a remote office since 2017. We use the project management structures. All our project management structures are, available offline. So we use Asana, Trello, Freshdesk. We use our storage Office 365, and we have our ShareFile and SharePoint for our file management. So we can actually work from anywhere on the planet, and we have done. I've headed that the office from India, Newfoundland, etc. As long as we have Wi-Fi, that's Maslow's hierarchy of principles, and as long as we have Wi-Fi and a battery, we can manage building control in the 31 building control authorities. We have 5-pillar project. We started off with a 4-pillar project, and our first one is compliance board. We answer about 6,000 queries. We have a team of 6, small team of high-functioning team of 6. Our education and training, we've developed building construction 3rd level education courses in conjunction with the 3rd level institutions. We have Waterford IT, an MSc in Building Regulatory Compliance, GMIT with an MSc Building Control. We have a certificate in Building Control, which we graduated 115 students on last year, and we have 77 on this year's course. So we've designed and developed all of those in conjunction with the 31 building control authorities. We carry out inspections, and we support the 31 building control authorities in carrying out inspections, show them how to. So what we did as a small team, we developed a little online, a little inspection app that they can carry out. So we amalgamated ArcGIS with Survey 123. We sort of work on the Virgin Airway principles of not invented here. We'll take the best of the best, we'll join them up, we'll integrate them, and we'll provide you with a cheap, effective solution that will do the job for you. Our ISBCMS, that's the National Building Control Management System, and we designed that ourselves using open source software. We commenced in the legislation changed in the 1st of March 2014, and the department asked us to have an IS system in place, and they signed the legislation on 17th of January. So we had a very rough system in place. Again, we used a lot of open source Drupal, Sugar, CRM systems built on a Llama stack. And we managed to build a system which we have built and expanded on since 2014, and it's been operated since 2014, 365, 24/7, with only 1 hour of downtime that we didn't take it down ourselves. So it's probably the first national system that local authorities built where we have our customers are outside the system, and we have an inside back end of validation of notice applications. And We have customers from all over the world. At this moment in time, if I pressed on the system, I'd see people submitting commencement notices from Malaysia, United Arab Emirates, so all sorts of places. The end of this year, because of Brexit, we were asked to take on the role of the National Market Surveillance Authority. National Market Surveillance Authority means that every construction product that comes on the market must have an EN certificate, and the fact that the UK is now a third country was an issue, so we've taken on that role. So we're a busy little office. So for the purpose of this project, we have submitted on our system. Online submissions include commencement notices of building projects to commence, certificates of compliance on completion, applications for fire safety certificates, applications for disability access certificates, applications for dispensations, relaxations, and we produce building control register of all these projects. We commenced with the commencement notices, and when we closed down, the country closed down during COVID-19, and because the European Bank service indicators for the ease of doing business in Ireland, we would have been implicated. We actually quickly enabled online fire safety certificates and disability access certificates, which we put online last June. So what we actually have then is a system where we collect data from 31 counties in Ireland on our online system. The owners, designers, builders, assigned certifiers, and building control, they are all the users of the system. We collect data then on multi-projects, on schools, on housing, on factories, on everything that's built in this country, extensions, new build, material alterations, changes of uses. So we have all that data in our system. We are a building control authority, and we use that data to support compliance with the building regulations. But there's quite a lot of data in there as a byproduct of what's happening in the country. So we have that data. We've data from water, what type of water systems, is it 2-story, the square meters of the building, the type of construction, is it timber frame, is it steel, is it buildings, is it blocks, where is it built? We have the air codes, we have the longitude and latitude of all these buildings, and we use that as building control officers in the 31 building control authorities for the purpose of checking if that project is compliant with building regulations. So what we have then is we have basically we have in excess of 123,000 registered users from all over the world that submit projects. We have 77,000 commencement notices, building projects that have actually been built, are in the process of being building, or are going to be built. We have 30,000 certificates of compliance on completion in that, and we have we received about 2,000 applications since we launched that in June 2020. We take about 5,000, 6,000 queries per annum from builders, owners, assigned certifiers, and we answer all of those queries with our Fresh Desk online system. And we have approximately 1.7 million compliance documents in the system. These show what type of buildings, exactly what they're designed, how they're designed, the use, who owns them, where they are, etc. And this is just an example. We have about 7,000 user visits on the site on a monthly basis from, as I said, everywhere on the planet. So it is an interesting system. We designed the system, when we designed it, we kind of looked at in accordance with the e-government strategy for IS systems. That data as an enabler is really the main thing, and improve the governance, increase the capability of what we're doing, digital first, and it's definitely built to share. So everything we have is to share for the progress of the system on building control in Ireland. These are all the users, and that this middle piece there is it is a building control system. We're looking at the whole life cycle design of buildings. So we have planning details in there, we have building details in there. The fire officer, when the building is built, needs those details to actually look at how they will manage the control of fires in the area. Then we have the communities and how they respond to communities. The valuation office use that. They need that data to value the buildings. The housing agency needs the data on where the social housing can be. can be, the Land Agency have recently, the Land Development Agency have recently contacted us, and they said they see value in our data. The Central Statistics Office then for commencement notices of new buildings, for occupancy, for where these buildings are, for change of use of buildings. The local government, the Department of Housing and Heritage and Planning also use the data. The Health and Safety Authority have found the data very, very useful to know where the building projects are to go carry out their inspections. The City and County Managers Association use that data for, you know, where they need to plan their resources. Wexford County Council have been a very good advocate and helper of us, and so have Cork, and we, as I said, Dublin City Council manage our office on behalf of the 31 building control authorities. The regional assemblies need that data to know how to plan for the future. So the data for building control really provided sort of as a byproduct really of what is required for useful data for economic indicators, etc. So this is an example there of the local authority chief executive data, and Ross was just speaking about the chief executive of the health board when we started the project in Fingal with the very same chief executive. So the chief executive would use this data for the regional planning guidelines, for the development plan, for planning applications. For example, we see a lot of buildings going on in the country, and somebody has a planning application for a quarry. Quarry provides the byproduct of for concrete, for the underfloor fill, etc. So they can see, okay, we actually need that byproduct now. So that planning application there is quite useful because it can supply that area with those products for construction. So we have environmental data, where the wells, where the septic tanks are, and then we have the location and the use and the construction type. We can calculate from our system, the chief executive, so he could say that, or she could say that we have X meters of concrete being poured in our county in this month. We have X meters of buildings being constructed. So all that data is in there, but that wasn't the purpose that the system was built. The system was built for compliance with the building regulations. Then you have the building control officer, the data that they require. They're going out to look at a building and they want to see that it's compliant with Part A. The building will stand up, you know, it won't burn in the case of fire. People will have a chance to get out. There's radon barriers, so they can look at the type, the use, the class, who's going to be living in it, the method of construction, the complexity and everything. So they will check that data to show compliance with the building regulations. Then we have the building control administration systems, and they want to know how many commencements are starting, how many, somebody said in an FOI, how many fire safety certificates have we, how many disability access certificates, and all of that data, so they need that data. Industry are always looking for data from us. So industry want to know what's happening, where is it happening, what materials are being used, and this data then is used for suppliers, for manufacturers, and to see what the industry actually needs. And that's just there, the data there for 2014, the commencement notice, submitted commencement notice with supporting documentation. This year it was a little bit down because of COVID closures, but quite busy. But we can see inside our system that there's a lot of work being designed at the moment that may not be started. So whenever we get all our vaccination program done, we'll be building quite a lot of structures. So it is all the data, the residential data, the assembly, the industrial use, the storage, where's the storage area, you know, the dwellings, concrete, timber, masonry. So all of that data is in there for people. And so we were very thankful to get the innovation funding for this. So what we did is we took all that data out, cleansed it, put it in a system and put it out in our data portal. We issued a tender for the open data portal and we completed the project in November with one data set to be built on. So we can access that data set, and that's just an example of what the data set looks like. There's a huge amount of information. It's downloadable. You can download it, you can put an API to it, and it's updated nightly. So it's a piece of work that we put out there that we don't need to be downloading data and giving it separately to people. We have the 98,000 building records broken down into valid commencement notices, valid CCCs, unique building identifiers where they are, and all broken down, so you can search the data whatever way you want to search it. This is just an example of how the data can be presented, and that's just a small section of the data where all the 7-day notices, where the commencement notices are, and where they're all being built. We had a little issue before we cleansed the data. Some of our data was sitting up there in the Isle of Man and in the UK, but like what we've done now with this innovation funding is tidied it up, and you can see where the projects are, so you can get a visual representation of what's actually happening in the country. So really, the data portal provided the National Building Control Office with funding to use the byproduct of what we had, put it out there for industry, for planners, for government, to actually use that data for the benefit of the country. Good body in those use the data to see what's going on as well. And it didn't cost a lot. We provided the matching funding, but it will benefit many. And we are now in a position to expand on that data and use that data to other projects. We have other innovation projects now that we're looking at in conjunction with that data, and with the projects that have been carried out. For example, yesterday, when I was asked to look at this project, we were talking to Monaghan County Council, who did a lovely project with innovation funding on virtual inspections for housing. So after looking at that, I said, this is a great project. We can actually use that for virtual inspections for building control. And we actually bought our own drone during the year, and we have used it to inspect buildings. We can get into spaces and into areas and on roofs where previously it was either dangerous or we couldn't get at and get data. So matching that now with the Monaghan project, we'd hope to be able to kind of look at further expanding the innovation project. And then I was just thinking, Ross there had a lovely project, and there was a project last week with in Cork with the nursing project. And I was talking to my son, who's in Tala, he's finished, he's doing his intern in Tala, about the health benefits of having buildings compliant. So we're looking at a little project between us on that one. So just on that note, I would say thank you very much for the funding. We really were delighted to be able to produce that from it, and it helped us a lot, and we can only now expand and build on it. So thank you, and I'll hand you back there now.
Thanks so much, Mairead. So interesting. I think you've really sort of outlined the importance of open data to maybe those who don't know much about it, and this sort of mysterious, what does this mean? For those who don't know and want to find out more about open data more generally, our colleagues in the Reform Division of the Department of Public Expenditure Reform look after open data. So Rhoda, Marion and Paul, and you can look up their website at data.gov.ie and you'll see the data sets that are available, the applications and so on. Really, really important and really useful. And I suppose what really struck me, Mairead, about your presentation at the end is the collaboration and how one innovation, you're thinking about 3 or more, even within your family, which is great to hear. What I would ask as well, which I thought was very interesting, is that we know that there'll be lots of people, you know, I think in my time as a press officer and other jobs that I've had, about the information that you're making available and how useful that is to, say, journalists and politicians and so on. But what are the benefits from the NBCO's point of view and DCC? So from an internal point of view, are you able at this stage to quantify any early benefits that have accrued because of this innovation?
I suppose the first early benefit that has accrued is that we have that data and we can point people to it. So I'm not using my resources to try and pull data sets for journalists, for the CSO, for the department. And you mentioned Rhoda. She's actually, I would like to thank Rhoda, because she was very, very helpful in just aligning our project up with the open data source govern the project. So, but the first thing is it took work off of us and got us back to our core work. So we put that out there. So this is a little project that we can do a bit more work. We can add more data onto each year and we can expand on it. but it'll be out there and we don't have to be worrying about it. We have it cleansed and put in a proper format. So
I really don't
it's
know much about cleansing data. Are what does that, you're throwing it in the washing machine with some
basically throwing it in the washing machine because it's basically rubbish in means rubbish out. So if you put rubbish into our system, it's rubbish out. So what we have done is what it has got us to do is actually go to each of the 31 building control authorities and say, you actually need to actually watch what people are submitting in the form of commencement notices, the locations, the details, and to kind of have a better oversight on it, so that we can have a better output and a better view of what's happening in building control in Ireland. But the second thing is that my staff are not being all the time trying to pull data and questions and answers. They can do building control and what they're employed to do.
And I think that's one thing we can say that's common amongst all public service organisations, is that constantly being pulled left, right, and centre in terms of you know, either queries coming in and whatever, and it's taking you away from that central maybe role that you have. So you've gained great benefits in terms of efficiencies, and you've made this really important data available. Has this taken over then yet in terms of that formal? My recollection is that it used to be ESB connections or something is how they used to count new houses and stuff like that. Has your data become a more accurate statistic, or is that still sort of, is it too early days?
Well, actually, they're actually both being used at the moment. The ESB data is probably was the one that was the cleanest from a cleansing data. Ours wasn't, so I couldn't stand over it. We can stand over it now. So they are actually using both at the moment. One of our project members is a CSO member, and they is a CSO employee, and they actually use both. They can use both now.
And we actually have a CSO project that was successful too. So if you want to head over, as I mentioned earlier, Catherine's put all of the project summaries that have been successful over the last 2 years on our website. You can check out if you're interested in this whole area. Open data is so important, and we have such rich available data that has been collated for a particular purpose, whatever the organisation might do, and it can be so beneficial to so many. And those insights and that evidence and that data is so important, and I really like how Mairead talked about building on other innovations and working together. So well done, Mairead, fantastic project, and well done to your team.
Rita, can I quickly just add to that?
Sure,
Well,
go ahead.
sorry to put in, but Mairead, no, I've actually been familiar with your BCMS Drupal project as a Drupal developer, because there isn't an awful lot of Drupal projects that happen. So when I saw it, and particularly when I was building a house, I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a little probe around it, and it's an excellent, well laid out system, and very intuitive. You know, I mean, over and back of whoever is the contact on that building. It might be an engineer or whoever. So you've done a great job, and well done.
Yes, sometimes I think, thank you, Ross, for that. Sometimes I think having less money is better, because we had to use what was there.
Yeah. And the great thing about Drupal is there isn't really, for your need, a definitive building management system out there. So you very much, you know, use the expertise that you have in-house, and I'm not sure if you probably maybe outsource some of it as well, but Drupal is an excellent tool to you know, to build an application as well, a web application, to do the purpose of what you require for it as well. So well done.
Ross would sell anything to anybody, I think. He's great skills. Thanks, Ross. So finally, but last but not least, I'm delighted to welcome our colleagues from the Defence Forces.